Alright, what it is, Danny X. I am back here with Brooklyn Lou the Skeptic, and I hopped on his live a couple nights ago to have some theology talks with some atheists, and we did have a Christian jump on after a little bit. And this is a long one. I might have to break this up into two different parts. Anytime I make a live appearance on someone else's channel, I like to go through and get a copy of that with some reactions to put on my channel, because my channel is essentially a vlog channel. I don't like to miss episodes or appearances of mine on other people's channels. So I'm going to get into this, and I shouldn't have to interject much on this one, but let's get on into it. This is Brooklyn Lou. This is Scott at the Mirror Point. Brooklyn Lou's a skeptic. Scott is a non-dualist, kind of atheist adjacent. Then we're going to have Robert hop on. He likes to identify as a skeptic. He's not crazy about the term atheist. And then later on, we are going to have a Christian come on, Otangalo, which he's kind of infamous among the theology circles. There's a lot of channels that don't let him on. So we're going to get into all that, and let's do this damn thing.
The precept stuff is difficult because it's so aggressive and it's so attacking without like presenting anything.
Right. It's designed to make you feel like you've painted yourself into a corner. Like, you got to be wrong. I've just painted you into a corner that you can't get out of. So which contradiction are you going to go with, this one or that one? Take your pick. That's basically how they present it to you.
So Dark Light is in the room.
Hey, Dark Light.
And Robert, Skeptic Philosophy.
Yep.
Love to see you guys here.
I saw him today on Objective Ethics channel earlier.
Robert?
Yep.
Was Objective Ethics, is he doing a live at like this time or just on Sunday? Or?
Yeah, on Sunday. Yeah, it's usually, I think it starts around 5 o'clock, I guess.
Evening?
And it goes in, and I've seen it go as far as like 7:30. But he's real busy, so sometimes he has to cut it short.
Yeah.
So he cut it short tonight.
Hey, Dark Light, I was just telling Scott, there he is. Let me let him in. Hey, Dark Light, how you doing?
Morning, guys. How y'all doing?
Hey, what's up, man?
I was telling Scott that one point you made a few days back that I loved, because I never thought of it, actually. So it was something new to me, and it was like totally on point. And that is the idea of the God being completely omnipresent, and that would definitely mean that he's in hell. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, I made a reaction to our last little session, and I realized that I was way too polite with that guy. If we ever have something like that again, dude, I'm just going to go full on gloves off.
Yeah, man. Y'all were both pretty nice to the guy. Everybody was. I was sitting there just thinking.
Well, and he was taking advantage of us. He was telling us we were being rude, but he kept cutting us off. And then every time we try to talk, he's like, "You're being rude. You're cutting me off." I'm like, "Fuck you, mother." Oh man.
Oh, yeah, I know.
He goose galloped us, but we let him. We let him goose gallop us.
Yeah, that's what he was doing big time. He definitely well versed in his little script that he's got. That he spits off from the top of his dome like that. And he's just got all the little points, counterpoints down, and he's just trying to guide everybody to a conclusion. He's not. really engage with any questions. It's just he's guiding, you know.
But the thing is, he was actively ignoring because Robert brought up some good points that totally threw his shit off track, and he totally ignored that. And then right when he started his bullshit, I said some stuff that would throw it off, totally throw it off track, and he totally ignored that, you know. You just got to slow them down when they're trying to do that, because they're trying to machine gun you with all these points. You just got to slow them the fuck down and really dissect every little thing that they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after a while, you kind of realize what they're doing. So makes it a little easier.
You know, you could always just be like, you know what? I'll grant you everything. Just give you everything you want. Yeah, I agree. You have the better grounding. So you're right. Now, can you show me why I should believe Jesus walked on water? Did he really walk on? Then start changing it into internal critiques of their book. You know what I'm saying? And challenge them on their own ground. But that's the dishonest part about these presuppositionalists. They will never discuss the book with you. They'll never discuss their book because
that's exactly what we were doing. Is we brought up the contradictions in the Bible, and he quickly pivoted from the contradictions to this semantic ladder bullshit.
Yeah. How do you even know what's a contradiction without God? If you're operating on a no God premise, then you have no grounding into rationality. The only thing the atheist or the agnostic can ground himself on is a blind process of nature. And so you're like a Coke can. If I open you up, are you fizzing out truth or fizzing out the lie? They just want to capture you in that little word game, and it's just so funny though.
Hey, Electro Live 9199, how you doing? Glad to have you here. And Michael V4K, likewise. So, and now I got my eyes are horrible. Ankle Laganachik. How are you?
Ankle Logan chick.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, and I got Robert here. Let me let Robert in. Hey, Robert, how you doing?
No, you weren't too rude, Robert. You were not rude at all. You weren't rude enough.
Thanks, one of us, we were all way too polite with that motherfucker.
No, we might be talking about two different things. I just wanted to clarify. Dark, you're talking about the conversation we were having last night. I think me and Scott are talking about over on objective ethics, right?
Oh, okay.
Is that what we're talking about, Scott?
Yeah. Today, I was talking Lou a little bit today that I was watching Objective Ethics channel, and this lady came on, and and remember last week, Otangelo tried to call in, and Objective Ethics wouldn't let him on the stage because he apparently has some kind of problem with this, what's her name, Claude or whatever her name is, Claire
Claire,
Claw,
okay.
or Clow or whatever her name is.
Claire Call.
Yeah, Claire Claw, yeah. And now I see why.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this about Otangelo. He at least reads. Okay, and you read these people's blogs and you understand what it is that they're really representing. And when you see her blog, it makes you want to throw up. This is why I come to become this platform and started messing with this to start with, is because positions like they're holding is phenomenally unbelievable. It just cannot be accepted. It's a theocracy, and she's just wanting to call it a secular theocracy, but it's a theocracy. You should read her blog post if y'all haven't read it. I mean, the ideals that they want to promote over there is not only government slavery, not only being able to sell those individual people to corporations or entities for work, but even inside of what she wanted to legalize prostitution and whatnot for the men that can't have sex or shouldn't have sex because they're, they have deformities or medical problems and stuff. They all have the prostitution side, but even the prostitution side, majority of their money goes to the government. So this is government ran prostitution. I mean, all of it is just unbelievably horrific. The more you read
She's beating people that had sex before marriage and stuff.
Yep. Yep. You should see the section about children having to go to a different school if their parents are unrepented in having them out of wedlock, that they can't go. They're illegitimate. They divide children from legitimate children to illegitimate children. This is old school bastard ideology that the bastards are lesser than, they're a second class citizen.
And the funny part about that, the funniest part about that is Yahweh never married Mary. So Jesus was a bastard.
She's
That's
Muslim.
The funny part about that.
She's Muslim, so I don't think she cares.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Christians.
Nah,
She sounded like a Christian.
I don't know. This is a little harder than any Christian I've ever heard, I'll be honest.
Yeah, true.
I was going at it in debate commentary with a Muslim recently, which I don't really encounter very much. But I was going at it with, I think his name was Logical Muslim. And, yeah, I mean, to me, it's the same stuff. It's presuppositional stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's getting away with this term secular. And she even calls herself an agnostic because she's dealing with agnosticism in the terms that you're saying in the definite way that we cannot know. So you can be an agnostic theist or an agnostic atheist, and this is completely definitionally acceptable inside of her religion to say that she's agnostic and still a complete dedicated Muslim, because this is what she is. She's saying agnostic to act as if she's some secular ideology, but she's not. It's entirely a theocracy.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that you can. I think you can be agnostic and be of any religious persuasion at all. I think that that's true. I think most of the Christians I know are agnostic Christians. They don't really know, but they,
they claim to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, some have terminologies that they don't understand the terminology. They don't understand like the JTB model, or they don't have a set model in their head of what it is to know. So she probably at least has that in her head, right? In the sense that she says I'm agnostic because she knows that there's no falsifiable way to know, but she still believes it. Don't let her fool you on that. She still believes it. But you'll hear a lot of Christians, specifically the garden variety Christians that you'll talk to on the street, they don't know anything about what epistemology is or standards of knowledge or whatnot. So they'll use these terminologies all the time. I remember talking to one the other day. I knew that there was a God since I was 4 years old. That might have been in this channel. Was that the gentleman that was 3 or 4 years old? And I knew that God was real. Right?
Yeah, that was Tava. Was it Catholic traditionalist?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was
that word "no" doesn't mean what he thinks it means. It's my take on it.
I know that I know that I know.
Dark, you sent me some kind of invite. I think you told me. I didn't see it on the Discord. I didn't see it in my emails. I'll check spam files, but man, I definitely would love to have you on.
Okay, yeah. I was wanting to come on your channel. Yesterday I took a ride out to Fayetteville, Arkansas. A UFC fighter, Bryce Mitchell, had a grand opening for a gym out there, and I went out there to try to promote myself and invite them onto my podcast. So Bryce Mitchell is you can look him up. He's a literalist Christian, and also Jake Shields. I don't know if you heard of him. He's a retired fighter. And then Mark Coleman. He's from UFC from like back in the day when it first started. Mark Coleman. I shook his hand. And also Russell Brand was there. I didn't get to meet him. He was so swamped with people. He gave away like a $80,000 Gladiator Jeep. It was a cool little event. Like 400 people showed up for it. They had a long ass line of people waiting to get in.
Yeah, I know all those people because I'm a big fight fan, so I know all those people.
Okay, so you know them all, yeah. Yeah, I went out there to network pretty much because I watch Bryce all the time, and he's always he's a true believer, which I can at least appreciate that because most believers are not true believers. If you don't take your holy book 100% literally, if you don't live, kill, and die exactly as it is prescribed, then you're not a true believer.
Yeah, Bryce says a lot of crazy stuff. He's definitely straight up.
100% in flat Earth. All the science books are wrong. All the science books are written by demons just trying to disprove God. He's a full-on literalist.
Yeah. I've heard him talk.
5,000 years old, so that's what it is. He's full-on literalist.
Yeah.
So, Dark Light, I know you've come on my show. I think we had a conversation one time before. It's been a while. But how does your understanding, I know you're like working on your theology.
Yeah.
Not totally ironed out, I guess, but how does your theology so far address the problem of evil?
It's very easy because love has nothing to do with it. As soon as you say that your God is all loving, at that very instant, you create the problem of evil. I don't believe in evil. I don't believe that there's good and bad, but bad and evil are different things. Bad is the inevitable subjective experience that every self-aware being will go throughout life. You're going to experience something that's bad. We are state-dependent beings. We need certain states in order to survive and thrive. So anytime those states are challenged, we're going to perceive that as bad. So, I don't believe in evil and sin.
Oh, so you don't really believe in evil?
No, I don't believe. You could think of the worst possible thing you could think of and say, what about this? What about that? I would call it bad, but I make a clear distinction between bad and evil. Like, I don't agree with stuff, but I don't call it evil.
Yeah, well, that does resolve the problem of evil because it's the same argument that the naturalist or the materialist may say, well, we don't have the problem of evil because we don't believe that there is, some all good nature.
I think for evil itself to exist, then there has to be demonstrable, objective, absolute morality. And it is my position that all morality is subjective.
Yeah. I seen GeoSam put in there. What was your last public stoning you attended?
Yes.
I wanted to challenge you on something though, Dark. Would you be entertaining the possibility that the model of evil or good might work like a relative model, like a relative to motion? Like when you had this idea before we got out into space that motion existed and we didn't think about motion as existing relative to, because we're just a part of the world and that's just all we were ever connected to, so we thought of motion as an intrinsic thing. But then when we started exploring space and started exploring bigger ideologies, then we had to realize that motion was relative to. So motion without a relative to doesn't exist. And I think of morality or good or evil or good or bad as being relative to. So if I think of something as good, it's relative to its goals or its all statement. And I've had this conversation before about like playing chess. Is there a best possible move? If your goal is to win the game, that there's a best possible move to acquire that, but it has to be connected to that. It has to be relative to that. If that's not a goal, then there's no such thing as a good move. It's only good relative to winning the game, and so forth. Whatever your moral goals are, whatever your alt statements or your normative statements about how you want to treat society, if you have that, that's your grounding, then everything is either serving that or it's oppositional to that, and now you have movement is relative to.
Well, if you're asking, like, what do I find? Are you asking what do I find morality relative to, essentially?
Yeah, well, I'm just curious if that's something similar, because you were talking about evil earlier, or good or bad, and you didn't mention like it relative to an alt statement, but just a general sense of a good or bad.
What I find, all good or bad, what I perceive it to be relative to is our consciousness. That is the thing that it is relative to. It is just whatever consciousness that is observing it.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
It does. The consciousness would have to represent like all the normative values. Like, so if the consciousness says, that it's good for, or what their goals are, that they don't care, for instance, that one group is treated as a minority or less than, then by that virtue, that's what that's where what is good or bad relative to that ideology. So what I think of it as is instead of taking the collective consciousness as a whole, you can break it down all the way into its individual parts and say it is good relative to this goal. So even when we say a doctor tells you to don't eat or drink this, because the reason that they're telling you this is because it's bad for your health, right? It's bad for a specific aspect of your health. So if they're saying
There's meta levels to all things, including consciousness. So you do have a collective cosmic consciousness as the macro, and it fractalizes all the way down to the individual consciousness that we are, and it further fractalizes down into ever more micro levels of consciousness, such as the consciousness of molecules, the consciousness of atoms, the consciousness of subatomic particles, and even unto the consciousness of um, quantum particles.
smoking cigarettes are bad, but they don't say smoking cigarettes are bad. They say smoking cigarettes are bad for your health, or more specifically for your lungs. And if that's your goal, and if you care about that, then that's a relative statement.
But that makes sense to me, by the way. That sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with all that.
I really had another question I had for you, because this would kind of like get into really the meat and bones of your view, like that problem called divine hiddenness. Like it says, like if God's desire, like if he really wants a loving relationship with all people, then why is his existence not obvious or universally persuasive? How would you answer that?
Well, see, that perception, like the way you framed it, seems to be the perception that God is something that is separate from you. And it is my position that God is something that is intricately intertwined within every single person, every single quanta, every single void. Because there's often this perception, usually when people say God, they're always having in their head something that is outside of you. And me personally, I don't acknowledge divine hiddenness at all. I don't see that as a thing, because to me, every single aspect of creation is divine. But now with the followers of Abraham, they constantly want to push the divine on something outside of themselves, as their scriptures and dogmas call for. And that's the biggest.
Here's the thing, though. Like, a lot of people, and as a non-dualist, like people ask me that question, and it just really always just reminds me, most people don't experience this sort of oneness with God. They don't experience themselves as you're describing the nature of God. They experience this duality. They experience, I'm here, you're over there, the ups, the downs, the dichotomies. That's sort of intuitive. So why is creation like that? Why is that the apparent reality, this duality? Why is that what's so apparent to people? Because it seems like that would be sort of a wall of separation.
Yeah.
That one could connect with God, because mentally they're a dualist. And so what you're saying is we are God. So how can one realize that when their reality is this limitation and duality and all that?
Well, I think a lot of people are preconditioned into perceiving that dualism. So because of the religions that are out there, I think a lot of people are just preconditioned into that. But now, for me, that's okay. So there's the dark light decalogue, okay, which is 10 fundamental traits that I perceive to be the one true creator or God, which isn't something separate from us. But see, the very first thing is unity. The second one is consciousness, dark, light, and paradox. And right now, what you're talking about to me is hitting on the paradox of it. How can something be united and divided simultaneously? How can something be dark and light simultaneously? How can something be something and nothing simultaneously? And to me, that contrast is necessary to distill the distance and the time in which all of creation can be expressed. Because what I call it is the fractal singularity omnimatrix. It is one of my theories that everything actually exists at the same time and place simultaneously. That everything, that everything is ultimately just a living dream, because everything is actually everything is the unity. Okay, and the unity infinitely fractalizes to distill the creation that we find ourselves immersed in.
Can I throw something at you?
Yeah. Yep.
Have you heard of the fallacy called a distinction without a difference?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Okay. The distinction without a difference is that if you're defining something in a way that is the exact same thing that someone else is already using as a terminology, but you're saying, but it's different. And the reason that I bring it up is because I think that many of us would agree in terms of what you're calling God, we call the universe. And I'm curious if you can define what the difference is on how you see what the universe is and what the God is. Would you say that you have different definitions, or there's some separation between the God is all of us or the God is the universe? It seems like we could just say we are the universe, and it seems like it served the same thing.
Yeah, so right here, I think the way you perceive it says a lot about something, because the way I perceive each one of those things is different from the way a lot of people perceive it. So most people perceive God as something outside of yourself, and most people perceive the universe as something outside of yourself. And I am more aligned with perceiving them as God is intrinsically yourself, and the universe is the inverse you, the inverted you. You are the universe. You are God. And I think this is an interesting point that Robert has picked up on right here. But and I'd like to dive into it a little bit deeper, because what he's saying is a distinction without a difference. But see, the difference comes in people's perception. You can have a symbol, okay, and you can say, okay, that symbol is the exact same thing, but where the difference comes in is in the person's perception of that symbol. Take, for example, the swastika. That is a symbol, but it means very different things to very different people observing that symbol. Okay, so to me, the distinction within the difference doesn't come from the inherent meaning of the words or symbols themselves, but the distinction comes from the perception of the consciousness or the sentient singularity, which is observing that symbol or that word.
I'd agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Well, that's the
how,
distinction
that's
without a
saying.
difference. It's categorized as a fallacy. I encourage you to read on it.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't see a separation between yourself and the universe. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't see a separation. I see the unity between the self and the universe.
I completely agree, and I think more people need to see themselves as they are all a part of the collective universe. Okay, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But when we throw God into it, and we don't like, it's now the same definition of universe. That's like one of these terms becomes useless. It would seem that one of these terms becomes useless, and you can throw one away.
Also, right there, that's like, okay, when you draw something, you can draw the exact line, which is outlining something, an object, or you can draw the silhouette, which is a line that is right outside of the defining line that defines something. Okay, and you're essentially drawing the same thing, but you're looking, you're perceiving it in a slightly shifted way.
Or the other, but they seem like they're the same thing.
Well, God is definitely a bad touch word, you know, to a lot of theists. Yeah, you could absolutely call it all kinds of different things and leave the word God out. Like God is not.
God is actually my least favorite term for describing it. My favorite term is the fractal singularity omnimatrix. But I am reclaiming that word God. I am taking that word back from the theists who have abused that term. Mostly the greedy theists, the followers of Abraham, who are so greedy of the term God that they think no one else is allowed to use it. They think that they own the entire term itself of God, and that is coveting. Okay? And so I am taking that term back and showing people that there is a completely different, another way in which to describe God.
Necessary word to describe it. But if you're asking,
I realize I didn't make this clear at the start of the video. It's half an hour into it, but I'm a non-Abrahamic true monotheist. Followers of Abraham are a blood cult of sin worshippers. Yahweh, Jesus, and Allah are desert war gods of hypocrisy, not the actual one true creator. But we are all brothers. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
I am a theist. I just that's like saying, okay, do you see the universe as divine or naturalistic? I see it as divine and naturalistic. I roll with a lot of atheists. I love the atheists.
Because I am theist, but I do not believe in a supernatural God. I don't believe in the supernatural, period. Anything that happens within reality is natural. Just because you may lack the naturalistic explanation for it does not mean it is not naturalistic. Take, for example, the cargo tribes, okay? That these are tribes that whenever a more advanced society comes to it, and the term cargo tribes is there was airplanes flying around that would encounter indigenous tribes around the world, and those tribes would idolize the ship, the airplane, as something supernatural because they did not understand how it works. And it's that same principle that applies to all phenomenon. I do believe in what I would call energetic phenomenon, which some other people might call angels or demons. I was raised as pagan, y'all. Like my mom would, um, she would have ways to communicate with spirits, like her own little ways that she mostly invented herself, you know? So I absolutely believe in energetic anomalies, but I do not capitulate to the perception of them being angels and demons because that perception necessitates division, the true division within the one true creator. And if there is separation or division, there is no one true creator. Which that's why I call the followers of Abraham, that is the broken theology of Abraham.
Arguments. I love the atheist criticism. I know you don't like that word, Robert. So everyone's an atheist, but you atheist, right?
No, I don't have a problem with atheists. I don't have a problem being called atheist. Yeah, you saw a video I made about. I don't have a problem being called atheist. Mm-hmm. Definitionally, it's what I fit into.
I think I know what Dark Light is talking about, though. And if I could, to just suggest maybe one way to answer that, what Robert asked you, because he does bring up a really good point, and it's a pretty popular fallacy people make. But what I usually do, because I'm a non-dualist, so I kind of share that problem sometimes in discussions. So the way I look at it is I'm a mereological nihilist. So what that means is that depending on your perspective, identity can change. For sure.
Yeah,
like I would say, for example, if my boss told me, hey, go into the reception room, we've got to do some accounting of some assets. And he'll usually ask me, tell me how many assets are on the table. And what he's asking for is like, is it a computer and a monitor, or is it a computer, a monitor, and like a UPS device that powers it, or whatever? Like, how many assets do we have to swap out over there? So I'll usually answer like, if I want to keep my job, like 2 or 3 things, like, 2 assets, whatever. But if I was going to answer that question as a physicist, I might say, well, actually, almost an infinity amount of assets are on there, depending on how you look at it. So if I answer it, and keep.
The power is in the perception, which is exactly why, see, the elites know this, and they necessarily need to manipulate the perception of we the people into accepting their systems and establishments, because their systems and establishments are powerless without we the people capitulating to them. And those who rule the world know that we are all God. They know that they are God, and they know that we are God, but they also know that if they keep we the people from realizing that we are all God, not God's with an S, we are all God. We are all a fractal expression of the one true creator. The one true creator is living through our lives.
My job, I'm going to say 2 things or 3 things. As a physicist, you could count up all the atoms, subatomic particles, which are just fields, which are just really mathematical equations, and they're all sort of configured in a computer-wise and a monitor-wise way, but it's all just one big reality like that. It's all just one big connected field of energy, right? So that's sort of undeniable, but it actually supports your whole theology, though, I think, in a way.
Do chairs exist as a great
Because it's dependent upon your perception. Yes.
video. I just put a link in there. I want to tell you, if y'all are interested in this kind of identity philosophy, Do Chairs Exist is one of the best videos you can watch if you're not big into reading. Some of these people that talk about like the identity of the table, like Bertrand Russell's The Problem of Philosophy and stuff like that.
My eyes look like they're almost closed this whole time because instead of looking at the camera, I'm looking down at the screens of the people I'm talking to instead of looking right into the camera. So it looks like I'm half sleeping the whole time, but that's what's going on there.
At least watch that video. Do Chairs Exist? It really helps you sort. Yeah, I put it in the chat. This side.
So would you say, Robert, that's sort of like a paraconsistent logical argument for that answer to that fallacy?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, everything is reducible, even beyond what we know it to be reducible. We don't even know the maximum reducibility, even past like quarks. We tend to think like quarks and then into just pure energy,
Well,
but then you have
fluctuations.
Right, then you could get into quantum fluctuations that could be, and then you have energy that is like a usable energy and non-usable energy. So you have like maximum entropy energy that is all spread out, to the degree that it's just a gradient of heat. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, everything is reducible more and more and more.
Well, I think you say you digress, but I think that actually follows right along the vein of this topic, really, because your original question is, isn't calling the universe God, does it therefore make calling it God meaningless? But I think that's just another way to call it. That's just like saying, okay, everything's made up of quantum fluctuations, therefore to talk about any distinction within creation is useless, because everything is just quantum fluctuations, but I don't think, like all of matter is made of atoms, therefore to talk about any distinction of matter is useless. You know what I'm saying? It's all matter, but there are possible distinctions that you could make in order to
That's why I asked you your distinction, though. That's why before I got into it, what's your distinction, or do you have a definitional distinction between God and the universe? And if you do, by all means, I'm all ears for it. But it seems if you don't have a definitional distinction that says this is where the universe ends, or this is where God ends, and the universe is just the rest. If you don't have a distinction, then it is a distinction without a difference. It seems like
Seems like there's some kind of fallacy in that perception, in Robert's perception to me. I'm not super familiar with all my fallacies, but within the unity, okay, everything is united, and within the unity, there are no distinctions. So must there be a distinction to verify something's validity in that which is all united? I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, y'all. And once again, it's all in the perception, and I would say that is in where the distinction lies, is in the perception.
it's the same thing. I will extend this olive branch to you, though. There is, at least in calling it God, a religious connotation to it that is not so much reflective of what the reality is or what its definition is, but rather our demeanor and our attitude towards it. So
Right.
when we call it the universe, we might think of this in more of a cold and unreflective and disconnected nuance. Whereas when we
That goes back to my analogy of when you're drawing, the difference between drawing the defining line of something versus drawing the what's the fucking word, the silhouette of something. It's the same thing, but you're looking at it a little bit different. That's like the difference between an atheist perceiving something and a theist perceiving something.
call it God, we're saying it with a sense of reverence for the universe, and we're thinking of it as something more reverenced. So that's the only thing I think you could add to it by saying that.
Like a perspective, like with the example I was showing, you've got my perspective of two devices. You've got a physicist who'll call it a quantum field. You've got a religious perspective that can call it God. Because it's all just the universe.
Yeah, well, I think that's the freedom of perception. I don't think that lessens the perceptions one way or another. I just think, if anything, that's just multiple different lanes of perspective that you could go down. I don't think it really lessens either or. If anything, that just enriches the language with which you can describe something.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not saying that as like a proof of God or anything, but like,
But yeah, so as I'm thinking about it, a distinction without a difference, fallacy. But fuck. It seems like there's a fallacy in asserting that there must be a distinction, and it all comes down to your perception. Like, if it is your perception that everything is separate, if it's your perception that everything is separate, then yes, there absolutely needs to be a distinction in order to align with your perception of separation. But if you perceive everything as unified, then there can be a distinction, but there doesn't necessarily need to be a distinction to derive meaning from something.
I mean, I definitely get that.
You don't need a proof. We believe.
Yeah, well, I understand that God itself is a bad touch word for a lot of theists. I understand that,
Yeah.
Well, like the mystics would say, a mystic would say, well, how would you describe God or the universe or reality, fundamental reality? A mystic would just say, Well, if I begin to tell you, I start lying. It's like
Well,
the word
I have another term, which is fractal singularity omnimatrix. I much prefer that term than God, because I think that's more specific as to what the universe or God actually is. But it's I'm trying to take that word back from all the other theists out there using the word God. By me using the same word God, but calling it something totally different. Not only am I redefining that for atheists, but I'm also redefining that for theists as well. And I'm just showing people that there's a different way that you can look at this thing,
I think that yours is lining up with almost what the AC/DC quote is of God. I don't know if you've heard this, that God is the name of the blanket we throw over mystery to give it shape. There's a type of reverence to it, but you're calling God just the shape of the mystery, and you're giving reverence to it.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, and you can call it a bunch of different things. You can call the shape of the mystery science, or you can call it God. But I don't think that lessens the validity of the inherent mystery of life itself.
Do you have reverence for God?
Well, I have reverence for all of creation, and I think all of creation is. Now, I don't have reverence for the Abrahamic God. I don't have reverence for the Abrahamic perception of God. Because they have scriptures which command harm on their fellow man to anyone that doesn't capitulate to their particular perception of God. So I very much so have defiance for the Abrahamic gods. So like I don't take God as like a blanket terminology that equally describes everything. That's why I'm trying to take it back. I'm trying to take back the word God from what the Abrahamic religions have done to it.
I think a lot of other belief systems are doing the same thing.
And let's talk a little bit about exactly what the Abrahamic religions have done to the construct of the one true creator. Because from their perception, they want the one true creator to have all the awe and power, but none of the responsibility and respect towards the creation. And you see this in their insistence upon all the divisions: the blessed versus the damned, heaven versus hell, sin versus saint, chosen people versus the condemned people, God or God's kingdom versus the world, light versus darkness. All these incessant divisions that are being artificially juxtaposed upon all creation. So these are some of the constructual divisions that I am attempting to unify. See, the actual one true creator called on me to defy the broken theology of Abraham everywhere that I encounter it. And it was more, it wasn't like some separate voice or anything. It was an internal calling that I could choose to accept or to reject. And if it wasn't for the followers of Abraham incessantly attempting to force capitulation to everything around them, I don't think I would have felt compelled to defy them as much or at all. But since they obviously seem fully compelled to demand the submission of everything, to covet the attention of everything, that incited something in me to stand up and defy this broken perception of God being thrust upon the world, which is why I'm speaking out, essentially.
That's why I'm always intrigued with your belief system, because I know you got a lot of thought that went into it. And I find it, as a comparison to the Judeo-Christian Abrahamic God. I find your God, idea of God, to be better. Right? And that I will say. But I probably, I'm not with you on certain things for sure. But I think it makes more sense than the Abrahamic God, as you.
I am. I'm with him all the way. I'm about ready to convert, but I just will call it the universe, not God, if that's okay with you.
I'm spearheading the alliance of
A rose by any other name, Robert. A rose by any other name. Call it whatever you want. Call it the flailing donkey fucker. Call it the eternal turtle. Whatever you want to call it. It is still a thing.
defiance movement, which is anyone that opposes the broken theology of Abraham, which is, that they act like they own the world, but there's actually more people that do not capitulate to the Abrahamic theology. If you count everyone else, because to them it's us versus everyone, just like in their dogmas, us versus the world. Okay, you keep going around saying that long enough, the world's gonna fucking look at you and be like, motherfucker. So it's the alliance of defiance. That's for everyone that the Abrahamic theology has wronged, and up to and including the adherents of that theology. Because one by one, they're going to wake up to the falsehoods interwoven into their dogmas. But like Bryce Mitchell, the people that say, this here book is the truth. The problem is, if you can find one single thing in that book that is not the truth, then that entirely shatters that claim. And the more you can multiply the things that you can find in there that are untrue, just the more and more it shatters that claim.
The more fractures that arise. And the thing is, if the books, the holy books, so-called, the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran, if they were the pillar, the pinnacle of truth, we would not find one single untruth within them. Yet that is not what we observe. We observe a multitude of untruths littered throughout them.
Now, Bryce Mitchell was cool as shit, though, in person. He was cool.
That presupposes it's not definitionally true, and that you just have to understand reality in a way that aligns with it being definitionally true. This is the presuppositional, stronghold.
You're doing the work of the devil, the enemy. You're becoming the enemy of the church. You're doing the devil's work. That's what they'll say.
Yeah.
And then when you say, I don't believe in the devil, I don't believe in Satan, then they'll come around with the greatest lie the devil ever told, the greatest trick he ever pulled was convincing the world he doesn't exist. Oh, is that true? Because most people do believe it exists, but that's a very convenient comeback whenever someone says, nah, I don't really believe in the devil. Oh, well, the fact that you don't believe in the devil proves the devil. Oh, okay, well, you know who else doesn't believe in the Christianized version of Satan? You know who else? The people that you stole the religion from, the Jews. They have a totally different perception of what Satan is. To Jews, the Satan is not a rebellious angel that is the ruler of an entirely separate kingdom. No, to the Jews, Satan is a loyal angel to God, doing God's bidding. And there is no hell within Judaism. There nothing resembling the Christian hell. The closest thing they have is Sheol, which is at most a 12-month cleansing process that the soul goes through on its way in reincarnation to the next life. The Jews believe in reincarnation. The Christians only believe in one life. I got a whole list of differences between Yahweh and Jesus. And how many things can you change about an eternal, unchanging God until you must admit that it is a totally different God? How many things?
I think presuppositional is laughable because obviously we all really base reality on sense data. I mean, it's clear that we do. The sense data, the inputs, we don't look at a car coming and say, let me see what God feels about that before they get the hell out of the road. We see that car coming and we think, okay, I'm going to trust my senses on this and I'm going to get the hell out of the road. So all of us will ultimately lead to that. And at some point, especially when it comes to intense sense data, such as your hand on the stove, as what's his name, Sam Adams likes to reference back to, not Sam Harris. At some point, you just cannot ignore the input from that sense data. At some point, it's just all that you can think of. It says that's hot, and you have to react to it. But that's the foundation of things. You don't need a presupposition of anything else.
Yeah.
Hey, TSPCI, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Glad you stopped by.
The universe is an image of God. That's the distinction. That's what he says.
Yeah, I wish I could talk to him. I want more of an explanation about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the universe is an image of God. That's the distinction.
Well, let's talk about that right there, that statement in relation to limit, because followers of Abraham like to say that their God is all powerful and limitless, but that can't be true. If you look at all of reality, all of creation, everything is based upon limit. Okay, the entire periodic table is nothing but a chart full of limits, which is essentially what all of matter is based off of, is limits. The speed of light is a limit, and a limit is a
boundary.
Limit is not a liability. Limit is what actually allows creation to exist, because without these limits, creation would not exist. So, limit is actually a good thing. And so my perception of God is not limitless, but is limited.
Have y'all heard of the last Thursday problem with the God being able to do everything? I don't know if are y'all familiar with the last Thursdayism?
No.
Okay, so
Yeah, I am.
Oh, you are. All right. So just for the rest, I'll briefly run you. The last Thursdayism is the proposition that we just started last Thursday. All of reality literally just started last Thursday. And it's all backloaded with all the data, with all the memory, everything that you think you lived through. It's all just put in there, right? It's almost like a replica.
And you could even extrapolate that idea to the last second. Fuck last Wednesday. Last secondism. Just from second to second, constantly being reborn into a new reality, which is true because it can be viewed as true. Doesn't mean that it is necessarily true, but it could absolutely be viewed as true, as every passing moment is dead. Every moment that slips by is a micro death leading up to our eventual macro death. So every passing moment very well could be a perpetual downloading and reloading of existence.
The movie Dark City from back in the day?
Yes. With the replica thing that all of her childhood was a lie and all of this. Yeah. Yes, perfect. Or you're talking about a different one. I was talking about the replicas with Sam Harris.
There's a movie called Dark City where every single night these aliens come in and change everyone's memories and totally give them a totally different life, but they like restart over. But these people don't know it. Like they just wake up.
Was a little different.
Yeah.
So the oldest one that I remember referencing this on screen was from I think it was called Replicas. It was with Sam Harris. Not saying Harris. Why am I keep saying Sam? Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford was in it. I don't know if it was called Replicas, but anyway, there was a lady in there that at some point she was told that all of her memories, everything, that it's not real. She's a replica and that all of that was artificially created and put in. But anyway, so the ideal of last Thursdayism is that all of this just started last Thursday. It's all pre-created with this. And the reason that I mentioned that as a starting place to start is if it could be the case, if God wanted what he really wanted as a goal is he wanted a bride to be selected from the group, right? That he, whatever life they lived, whatever character they become, he was going to select all that and take it up into heaven, and he'd choose his bride. He could have started with just preloaded all of that, made the cartridge, if he's all powerful, and started it in heaven. The universe, the physical reality, none of that even needed to exist if he's all powerful. But if he cannot do that, and he cannot create that bride and the people and the group that he wants to select, if he can't do it, then he's got to do it systemically. And that means that the universe can do something systematically that God can't. So it means that he has to run through the gauntlet of creating reality, letting it shape people, let their interactions get them to a shape or a mold, and then say, I select that, and that goes up into heaven with me. If you were all powerful, you would. That's a total waste of time and energy. You just make it just like last Thursdayism already in heaven, and you skip all of this physical pain and suffering and everything.
But there's some real life examples of that in the Bible. Like take sin, for example. If God was all powerful, the Abrahamic God, then he could just simply forgive your sins. He would not need blood atonement for your sins. Okay. And also, if God was all powerful, then he could enact his will without breaking his commandments. And if his commandments were important, like the followers of Abraham, this here book, that's the word of God, and that's the most important thing. If his word was truly important to him, he would want to enact his will without breaking his word. So the fact that he breaks his word means that either he doesn't have the power to enact his will without breaking his word, or he's not all loving, like he has the power and he is all knowing, he knows a better way to do it, but he doesn't care enough to do it. So either he's not all powerful, he's not all knowing, or he's not all loving, or all of them. But either way, you can apply that same principle directly to the problems in the Bible itself.
All omni, all infinite power stuff, it all runs into paradoxes. It all creates paradoxes. You can't have infinite. It's not just like the immovable stone and the unstoppable object, or can God create a stone that he can't move? It's not just those problems. Like anytime you apply omni or an infinite thing, and then you set them against one another, like reality will rectify. If you think about the unmovable object and the unstoppable force, what would happen when they actually collide? Let me tell you what will happen. The reality.
This is my second time interacting with Robert, and he impresses me every time. Now, I've been hanging with Brooklyn Lou for a while now. Scott from Mirror Point, I've had a handful of interactions with him. So Robert's new to me, and Robert makes me happy. I mean, these other guys too, absolutely. I'm going to be going on Robert's channel here soon, next Thursday, or what is it, Saturday? I think he has his lives on Saturday.
Will simply rectify that. One of them will prove not to be, or both of them will prove not to be absolute. It's the nature of reality. So the idea that there's this omni or this complete or this absolute, it's just paradoxical. It can't happen.
Well, in the Bible, God shows himself to kind of be both. Like he's omniscient, and yet he's not omniscient. Like, like in the Bible, God says in Numbers 23:19, it says, God is not a man that he should lie, or the son of man that he should change his mind, right? And then you've got,
or repent in some versions.
It repent, but yeah, it's all the same, word that means change his mind or whatever.
Those are just claims, though. Those are claims of the omnis. But then I know what you're getting at, though, because then you got
his mind. Like in Exodus 32:14, he tells Moses that I changed my mind from the disaster that I had spoken of bringing on to my people. So the book itself,
this is where he sends a lying spirit. Okay, so that's God telling a lie. If you're sending a lying spirit, so you have the claims versus the reality, which is kind of goes with what Robert was saying. Reality will reveal what claims are true or not true. And I think that goes along with, everything within our known reality is based on limit. So the minute you say that something is limitless, that doesn't align with reality.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm seeing the side chat over here that the Bible is for instruction. I mean, there's really no way around the ideological ideal that God repented from what he had said. He turned from that position. It means that he was at course. He was in a trajectory he thought this way, and then something changed his mind. It repented the Lord, is what the KJV, if I'm not mistaken, says in this context. So this is no uncertain terms. There's not a definitional problem here. This is not a teacher problem. This is inside of the ideology of the writer, that it repented the Lord. He was thinking of doing it this way, and then he changed that. That is a problem with being coherent with an all-knowing mind. An all-knowing mind cannot have known all of this in advance and then say, I changed my mind. I'm gonna do it a different way. Oh. So either it's wrong, either the text is completely wrong, the writer was mistaken, or this is a serious problem. This is just their ideology, and it's not
God was lying.
Right, or God was lying, one or the other.
Well, God did send a lying spirit, like Doc Light said, in the Bible. So that in and of itself is just completely off the track of God being honest all the time, right?
Yes.
It's sent a lying spirit.
Not lie, absolutely. And it's fine. Whoever in the chat, they said that the Bible is what was the phrase they used?
It's instructional.
Instructional.
It's fine to say that the Bible is instructional. The problem is when you say that the all-knowing, all-powerful God is the one that wrote the Bible, which is the claim that they're making. Mm-hmm. It's fine. You can say that the Bible is instructional, but the problem arises when you say that the all-knowing God wrote that Bible.
But we're all God, Arclight, so technically God did write it.
Yes.
I'd agree with that, but I wouldn't agree that we are all-knowing, though, because as I said, my perception of God is not all-powerful, is not all-knowing. I would say it is all what is it? Exists everywhere. But that's about the only one of the omnis that I would accept is omnipresent. Only
Tangelo backstage,
yeah. And I'm actually going to give him a spot here myself because there's going to be a lot of talking with 5 people in here anyway. But I appreciate you letting me on, Lou. Dark, I'd like to see you on the show sometime. Scott, as always, it's good talking to you, man.
Yeah, nice talking to you, man.
Right, later.
All right, and I will make these different sections here. I'll go ahead and cut this off right here, and I will start a part 2 from where the Christian comes on, as what we did last time. So that was a great talk right there. We're going to continue this with Lou and Scott and Otangelo. I'm not sure if he's denominational at all, but he's at least trying to be intellectually honest, unlike that last guy that Lou had on, the Catholic traditionalist. He was, I don't think, trying to be intellectually honest, but so Otangelo is definitely worth a watch, y'all, and that will be on the part 2. So I will go ahead and cut this off right here. Otherwise, this video will be way too long, and I risk it cutting me off at some point and not saving if it's too long like that. So I appreciate y'all rolling with me. Hop in on the next one if you want to see our conversation with this Christian that's about to come on. I am the brightest night, I am the darkest light, and I am ascending, as are we all. The dark light is now upon you. Stay beautiful, motherfuckers.